Welcome to the worst of the CBC. This is a brand new segment where every day I have free, I will watch 1 hour of CBC News. If I do not die of an aneurysm, I will come back and report to you on the very worst thing that they did, being most biased or just plain bad. Then I will mention the most startling omission of the day. Finally, each 1 hour episode will be rated on a scale of 1 to 10 Rosemary Bartons. 10 Rosemary Bartons being the worst, most biased thing I experienced, after which I probably drove my head through a wall. And 1 Rosemary Barton means that was meh. Good isn't out there because I've never seen that from CBC News. So let's get into it. July 28th, 2019. Now, it was apparently a slow news day as the 1 hour news was on 2 half-an-hour cycles, so it was only 6 stories, one of those being the weather. In order of how they appeared, here's what they were. The manhunt in Manitoba, real news. Bernie Sanders is buying insulin in Canada and saying crazy things as Bernie Sanders does. Elijah Cummings and Trump are in a Twitter war. They touched on Hong Kong briefly, so really it's like 5.5 stories. Then Fortnite tournament, yes, that was really in the news, and it got more coverage than everything else. And then the weather, so really 5 stories. Out of this, the worst thing today was their framing of the Trump-Elijah Cummings fight. Of course, the CBC framed this as Donald Trump does another racist thing. This is why Donald Trump is allowed to get away with his more questionable tweets, let's say. So, when he said, go back to where you came from, to the 4 or 3 congresswomen, only one of them being from Somalia, the other 3 American-born, everyone was upset, and rightfully so. You can't say that to people in Congress because it has wider externalities in different communities. The president shouldn't be saying that. The president shouldn't be in flame wars on Twitter. But also, that goes the same for the Congress people who should be not engaging in flame wars with Trump. So, what happened? There was a massive framing in American news over Trump's tweet. It started when they say Trump said that Baltimore minority communities was infested as he criticizes another black lawmaker. Trump criticizes everyone who doesn't like him, okay? When Donald Trump slams Rosie O'Donnell on Twitter, it's usually because Rosie O'Donnell said something nasty to Trump first or second. Does it mean that Donald Trump hates white people? Does it mean that Donald Trump hates women? Does it mean that Donald Trump hates people with Irish last names? Or does it mean that Rosie O'Donnell said something to him, so he said something back because he's Donald Trump, and this is how it's worked for the last 4 years? Everyone get over yourselves. I go with the latter. But they're trying to frame it that he calls Baltimore infested with minorities and no one wants to live there. Listen, okay? Baltimore is the second most dangerous American city. America is not the safest place on the planet. Full disclosure. I have family in Baltimore. I've been to Baltimore. They gave a little tour. My favorite part was the personal tour is when they just showed, yeah, okay, see those blue lights flashing up there? Yeah, they're flashing around. That's the new plan, just to let everyone stay away because the police, they're just not going there. That's just gang infested. We've just given up on the blue. Baltimore has serious problems. It's been Democrat run for years, and Trump is ripping on it because he's Trump and he saw something. So, is this racist? No, but this type of nonsense is the reason why he can get away with almost anything at these points because of all these false positives, and the CBC did it again because they framed it as another racist tweet, as Trump attacks another African-American lawmaker. Trump's attacked every Democrat. Every single Democrat, okay? When he attacks Nancy Pelosi, he doesn't do it because he hates white people. He does it because he doesn't like Nancy Pelosi, okay? Let's get this through. But instead, they tried to play the high road, which is even worse with the CBC. They did this false neutrality. So we're not going to say anything. We're just going to look at the Baltimore Sun reporting. Then they basically went through an entire diatribe by the Baltimore Sun where they brought up every one of the all the classic false positives on Trump, right? He said there are good people and murderous neo-Nazis. No, the whole thing was he said there are good people on both sides of the taking down the statue debate, and then it's being co-opted by an evil movement. If you listen to that whole quote in context, it's really not that bad. He wants to grab women by their genitals. He doesn't this. Like, it was the greatest hits of the radical left just being pushed out there. And again, what could be more important than an American president feuding with a congressman in Canada? Could it be the upcoming Canadian election? Maybe we could talk about Justin Trudeau. He's brought back Gerald Butts. Is that a scandal? Andrew Scheer. Well, he's hiding in a hole somewhere. We could talk about that. Maxime Bernier. Jagmeet Singh going to war with the NDP base. I find that hilarious. How about Crazy Tree Lady? Maybe she got drunk and praised another terrorist. Who knows? No one knows because that's not important in Canadian news. Instead, it's Trump said something mean and the world is falling and that means everything's racist. Moving on to what should have they covered. Now, I know you're saying, Daniel, What could be more important than a story about 13-year-olds playing Fortnite? I don't know. The collapse of the Canadian judicial system, maybe? How about the fact that the human rights tribunals have turned us into an international laughingstock? How about that? And Jessica Yaniv. Now, Jessica Yaniv is the dude who went around telling women, mostly minorities and immigrants, to wax his balls or else he's going to sue them. Now, he brought 16 different cases to the human rights tribunals and not a word from CBC News. Then it comes out that he has a history of what looks like child predation. Nothing on CBC News. In fact, there's one article written about him on the CBC, and it's pretty positive. Kind of frames it as a civil rights question, a interesting civil rights question with as many different sides. No, this person has been talking to 12-year-old girls about their periods and going to girls' locker rooms and taking pictures in the girls' bathroom and saying sexually suggestive messages and content to minors. This is a child predator dressed up like a trans woman going into the bathroom and then using the faulty judicial system and our sense of political correctness and whatever the hell else is wrong in Canada as a cudgel against random women for his own self-gratification and fame. Do you think that's an important story? I do. Apparently not. But who knows? I'm not in the CBC. And all in all, I'm giving this episode 3 Rosemary Bartons out of 10, which is a pretty good score on the bias scale, but remember, that's just the bias scale. And the reason why it's only getting a 3 is because, honestly, there wasn't really much news. They didn't do much. The manhunt, that's the legitimate news. It's in America, and that's the real function of a news organization, to get the information out there, so that's fine. Bernie Sanders! Okay, you know, they just kind of let him talk. It wasn't that bad. Cummings versus Trump, that's where it really was. Hong Kong, they only did like a 10-second snippet on it, but that's, again, real news. And then Fortnite. It's hard to be a biased news organization when you're covering a bunch of 13-year-olds playing Fortnite. So considering they didn't really do much, they didn't have much chance to be biased, but they did manage to sneak it in there. And again, ignore the Canadian election in favor of American politics. And not even really American politics, just the nonsense version of it. So all in all, 3 Rosemary Bartons out of 10. I will see you guys tomorrow as I watch another episode of CBC News. God help us all.